So, I made a massive factory, I guess. We have been talking in the server about having a shopping district, and one of the rules is that each shop can only sell items of one singular theme, meaning, if I was to make a theme around the ocean, I would only be allowed to sell items that fit that theme. Not necessarily from the ocean alone, but that they fit the theme in general. For that reason I decided to be a mason. Create lets you produce most stones, and we have a data pack to make the rest of stones be renewable too. I thought it would be a fun project to make a factory that can produce any type of stone, and make a mason store for it. I also want to remind the humans that if you're interested in playing with us, the Tier 2 supporters get access to the SMP, either from Patreon, or YouTube members, which by the time I upload this video the YouTube membership should already be available, if not it will be soon. Everyone is also welcome to come hang out with us on Discord, all the links will be in the description below. With all that out of the way, let me show the humans what this factory is about. It all starts with this portal and the lava pit. This is the main connection I have for quick travel, and I also used it to bring lava from the nether, to fill up the lava pit much quicker. Making use of a hose pulley to extract lava from the nether, and a few belts to move the lava around with buckets. It took a bit of time, but it was an AFK process. It's roughly 12,000 blocks of lava, well over the 10,000 needed to make it infinite. I also decided to make it as vertical as possible, so it would use little room in the surface. And of course I covered it all with glass for safety. Over this side of the pit I have 2 hose pulleys, I might end up adding a third one soon. The one that leads to the right side is feeding the steam engine directly, and I absolutely love the design of it. I inspired myself on those massive pipelines they use for natural gas and other stuff, though those are usually lower to the ground. I just thought it would be cooler this way. It's also way more lava than it needs to be, but I wanted a dedicated pipeline for the engine alone, to make sure it never runs out of fuel because I'm consuming it somewhere else. I have infinite lava so, it should never be a problem anyway. The engine itself is the same design I always do, minus the cauldrons to generate the lava. I could have done something new, but this design works perfectly, and I was more excited to work on the rest of the factory instead. I have a video covering in great detail how to build this design, and it includes the schematic, in case any human is interested on that. I still love how it looks. The cast iron walkways look phenomenal. It's a very simple design too, but I didn't want it to add too many details. I want the factory to be as accessible as possible, to look industrial and also very simplistic. Even for a factory this big, it's producing way more than I'm ever going to need, but that's not a problem since I'll never have to tweak this engine anymore. On the other side we have the main pipeline for the factory. This one I might need to add a second one to help. Sometimes it struggles a bit to keep up with the consumption. Over this corner I have a clutch to turn the entire factory offline. I want to replace all these levers with redstone links eventually, but it's still good to have for now, to prevent server lag, and of course in case I need to fix anything in the factory. At the other side of this shaft I placed the cobble generator. A bit bigger than I normally use, and also decently laggy, but it produces as much cobble as I could possibly need. It's also one of the easiest designs to make, and it never tends to break. Not particularly pretty in my opinion, and as you can see, I should be covering this up to prevent all those particles, but if it works it works. You might be thinking this many vaults are an overkill, but the reason is to run the generator whenever no one is online, and have a good vault to use them later on. This way it doesn't bother anyone playing. All this cobblestone moves to yet another vault, with a clutch to lock the generator if I need to. And some funnels on the side of it to output all that cobblestone into the parts of the factory that need it. You can see from above I made use of a bus to distribute materials along the factory, very inspired by Factorio and similar games. There is 2 lines for the cobble, each one to reach different places of the factory. The one on the left moves all the way to the other side, since there is cobble needed over there, but let's check first the right one, which reaches the first processing section. If we turn this on and let few stacks go through, this is a very simple crushing setup. I made use of tunnels to distribute all materials along this line, and if you're wondering why I used the vaults, that's because the tunnels split stacks among all the belts. The vaults are there to ensure the chutes only take an entire stack, and nothing less, to ensure the crushers are running efficiently. The tunnel is feeding the vaults more cobble than what the crushers can process, so there is never an issue of crushers being inactive. I'm pretty happy with this setup, even for something as simple as gravel generation. Which of course has its own vault to store it, and use as a buffer. If we take a look at the other side, I have placed a funnel to output the gravel, and tunnel to split the materials for 2 different sections. If we take a quick look here, I have used 2 different funnels to output the materials, instead of splitting it with a tunnel, and that's because a tunnel takes its time to move the items forward, unlike funnels. I think once I start tweaking the factory, I'm going to change it to this setup instead, so the gravel doesn't get delayed because of that tunnel. You can notice here how there are gaps, even though the vault is full and should fill up the belt entirely. Anyway, at the other side I made this little setup. It's basically an iron generator. It washes up the gravel, making use of mangrove roots to hold the water in place. With a funnel on the side to burn all the excess flint it's generating, and a press to convert the nuggets into blocks. It's a very simple setup that I frankly haven't used, it's just here in case we ever need it. The next section gathers the gravel, and turns it into sand. The gravel doesn't split anymore because it's not needed anywhere else. But if we take a look up here, this is basically the same setup I made for the first section too. With a bunch of vaults to distribute the gravel, and the crushers to process it into sand, pretty simple stuff. At the other side of the vault, there is the output setup I showed before, 2 funnels for the sand, and the excess clay that goes somewhere else. If we follow this belt, we end up over in this corner, where it gets haunted into soul sand. It has a little buffer before reaching the main vault, which seems to be full already. And at the other side, I have placed this setup to wash it into quartz, which seems to be completely empty now. At the front of it, you might have noticed there are few barrels placed down. That's in case I want to take some materials to sell in the shop, or if I need them for a building. But I honestly think I'm better off removing this, and just place a shulker into it, let it fill up as much as needed, and then just take back the shulker. I think this way it's going to be far more convenient. But anyway, we can see some quartz that's already flowing through. Then the quartz continues forward since I need it for something else, but this next section is taking the soul sand instead. That is used to produce scoria. It's as simple as smelting down the soul sand in this corner, it gets sucked into the vault, and that's literally it. This one is fairly easy. I'm also going to remove this barrel, but the rest is pretty much the same as before. We can see here how the scoria also continues forward, but this next section is tacking cobblestone instead. That's where the second cobblestone conveyor belt comes into play. This is the other line we saw at the very beginning. If we turn this back on really quick, we can follow the cobble into the tunnel we were before, where it splits and continues forward, but also pulls some into this section too, where it gets stored into this little vault. Then it gets poured into those basins to get converted into deep slate. Down here we can see how I'm feeding the basins with lava, and also heating up the basin itself. Then I'm using a very simple setup to place down the normal deep slate over this belt, and some drills to break it down to cobbled deep slate instead. I need the cobbled specifically, but I might end up storing the normal deep slate somewhere, since we're not saving any at the moment, and could be used for building purposes. The cobbled variant will output from the front of the vault, and move along onto the next section, where it's also going to take the scoria blocks that I showed the humans before. It's going to move them both along this line where they will be stored in two different vaults. After that, both blocks will be fed into this basin, where I'm also feeding some lava from underneath to generate tuff. This tuff will then move forward using this middle section of the tunnel. On the side of it I'm taking more cobblestone, and also some of the quartz I'm producing down the line. This is a much simpler setup, where it combines both materials with a mixer, to produce some diorite. Then I'm taking the rest of the quartz, with that same diorite I just showed, to move them over here, and with the exact same setup, I'm also producing granite. They both get moved forward at different parts of the tunnel, and this tunnels I'm using a vault on. It's simply to prevent anything from moving forward on that specific line. Now on the next one, I'm using the rest of the cobblestone, and more diorite again. It moves down this line to the exact same setup, where it gets turned into andesite this time around. And that concludes the use of cobblestone. We can see here how each of them is moving forward to the last section of the factory, but before that we have this little section. This is basically a cobblestone generator, but instead of using water, it uses honey to produce limestone. This one is pretty simple, it doesn't require any processing, I just need the limestone as is. And that one fills up the last section of the tunnel. Limestone, andesite, diorite, granite, and the tuff. That covers most of the stones in this mod pack. Of course I'm missing dark scoria, and few other things, but as a first step into this project, the factory is in a pretty good spot. I'm still going to tweak many things here and there, and improve the ratios where I can, but I'm really happy how this turned out so far. You might also be thinking, why are all of those stones moving forward if I already have vaults for them? Well, that's because we have a data pack to make the create stones be renewable too. If we take a look at the tuff recipes, we can see here how tuff can be combined with andesite and lava to make asherine. It can be combined with limestone and lava to produce viridium. On the next page we have tuff, diorite, and lava to make crimsite. And lastly it gets combined with granite to make the ochre. Between that, and some others that need dyes, it covers all the stones in the mod pack, with only dripstone missing, which I will do at some other point. That is possible with the help of this data pack called Create Renewable Ores. The main reason for it is to have better access to all this fancy building blocks. Instead of having to mine out massive areas of overground to find those veins, I have big plans in mind, and I didn't want it to ruin the landscape for it. As a consequence of those stones being renewable, is that those stones from the base mod already have a chance to give certain ores. In the case of asherine, they give a chance of crushed zinc ore and some nuggets. If we take a look at crimsite, that is going to provide us with crushed iron ore and some more nuggets. If we take a look here, this is where I'm producing all the different stones from Create. And they all get stored in their respective vaults, which I'm also going to remove the barrels to use shulkers instead. Then underneath the vaults I have placed down this crusher. It's hard to see, but I have placed some chutes that feed the crusher. There are levers in each one of them to process them individually. They then get thrown into a washing setup, where they all become nuggets instead. Now at the other side of this I have a mechanical press for each type of ore. Making use of a filter on the recipe slot, we can make it so it produces both ingots and blocks. Then all I did was output only the blocks with a funnel in the front. As we can see here, a single morning of being AFK here already produced tons of ores. With only gold being lower since that's the last one to get filled. For something that is supposed to be a side product of the factory, it does still produce a lot, and it's going to make expanding so much easier. In the middle of the factory I have placed this box. With this fancy looking elevator and all. In here I made a connection to the nether for quick travel, with some random storage so I don't need to fly back to my base every time, and of course a bed to skip the nights. I made this basically to have a spot where I can AFK while the factory is running. This is more or less in the middle of the perimeter, which means once I expand and fill the area, it should be in range of everything. I have marked the center of the chunk with this glass on the floor, but anywhere in the box should be fine too. Going through this portal leads us to this very ugly looking tunnel, but that is directly connected to this other one, which leaves us back at the beginning. It's fairly convenient depending on where I want to go. But as you can see, there is an entire area here I haven't showed yet. This first section is taking the sand I showed the humans before. It's processing it all down from sand to gold. And at the side of it there is this massive section to produce every single terracotta color in the game. Is this an absolute overkill that could have been done with a single crafter that switches the dyes? Yes, very much so, but I thought, if I'm going big, might as well go really really big, and it honestly looks amazing. I have placed this massive tunnel that distributes each color to their designed section, where I can either grab spare stacks from this barrel, or place down a shulker box to get the materials. But of course, at the back it's where all of them get produced. Over on this side, where I'm processing the sand to make gold, one of the steps is terracotta. The terracotta will move forward, get crushed down to red sand, and be processed into gold. But by blocking all these funnels, I'm using the same system to output some of that terracotta on the side, which will feed every single one of those mechanical crafting setups. They can all be turned on and off by convenience, which I will also swap to redstone links eventually. Over at the front there is this barrel to input all the dyes into the system, where they're going to be distributed along this conveyor belt, and dropped to their respective barrels. Having all materials in place, the mechanical arm will fill up all the slots with their respective materials, then will get produced and stored in this tiny vault, where it will decide to either get stored as normal terracotta, or get smelted down to produce glazed terracotta. These are things I need to automate at some point, but for now levers will do the trick. It's pretty much the same setup for every single one of them. My idea is to use the same concept to make the rest of concrete too, but this is pretty much the last section of the factory, at least for now anyway. This is going to be it for this episode, which turned out to be really long, and a massive amount of progress. I'm honestly really happy how this factory turned out, and there are still so many details and things I want to do with it, starting by doubling the lava input, and adding so much more redstone, instead of the 1,000 levers I'm using. I hope the humans enjoy this little tour around the factory, and that maybe gave you all some ideas for your own bases. Thank you so much if you made it this far into the video. Leave me a comment if you like the animations, or you would rather see me playing more instead. Don't forget to subscribe if you haven't already. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you all next time.